Drinking water before bed burns 46 pounds in 2 weeks. If you are struggling to lose weight and you're over 25,
Sorry about that. Okay, so now we know, drink
Drinking
water
water.
before we go to bed. You'll lose 40-something pounds in 6 weeks. Let me know if that works for you. Good morning. I'm Reverend Pamela. Thank you all for being here this morning on Zoom, and whoever's out there on Facebook, and I don't know who it is because we can't tell that from here. And Reverend Michael, thank you for your backup on picking a song and putting it online. And Reverend Vaughn, I continue to be amazed at how you can come up with something every month that fits the theme of what Science of Mind gives us. I tried it just to see. It's not easy. I couldn't do it. So I really admire that you do that. Thank you. So we're talking, the theme has been about emotions, and in particular, anger. And in Eddie Watkins' song, he says he's not going to get metaphysical and psychological, it's just all the same stuff. Well, I'm going to get a little metaphysical and psychological around this topic of managing anger. And I'm going to move to another place around it. I think it was at the end of Reverend Vaughn's chant. But before there's the feeling and the issue and the anger, there's the thinking. We tend to believe that we feel. We just feel. We have these feelings, and we do. But before we have the feelings, we have the thoughts. And the thoughts come so fast that sometimes we can't get our hands on them. We just have the feeling, but it's based on, it can be based on history. You've heard the expression, oops, they pushed my button. It means that they just opened the door to a whole line of thinking around something, a whole experience around something, and then it comes out after that button's been pushed. I know this button, and it comes out. But what we don't do when that button is pushed is go back to where all of that stuff came from. Somewhere between the reading and the songs, there was a mention of self-referent, of examining ourselves. Oh, in the song, Eddie Watkins says, if you don't like what you see, take a look inside. Plain and simple. Good point. We tend to say, I don't like what I see and it's all their fault. And the question frequently is, and what have I got to do with this? What is my part in this world that I'm experiencing that I don't like? And there can be any number of questions around that. It could be that we've been allowing this to happen forever. It could be that we haven't been an agent for change. It could be that we haven't spoken up. For example, if it's a family dynamic and it's been going on for 100 years or more in your family and nobody's addressed it. Nobody's said anything about it. Or, worse yet, they may have said something and it's been ignored. So the question becomes, I frequently ask myself, okay, I don't like this. So what have I got to do with it? Where's my part in it? How did maybe I have a piece of the creation of it? I have a friend who was telling me about her vacation, and this was approximately 8 years ago. She was going somewhere, and she didn't like the attitude of the ticket agent. And then the flight attendant didn't move quickly enough to get her some coffee, and so on and so on. And then at the vacation, she was staying with her cousin, and her cousin didn't do breakfast the way she had hoped breakfast would be happening. And when she came back and told me about her vacation, she hated her vacation. I thought, ooh, she spent all that money to go out and visit relatives and connect with family, and she had a miserable time. And I thought, I was getting ready to go to New Zealand, and I thought, I am not going to let a negative attitude stop me from enjoying my vacation no matter what. And I said, and furthermore, my vacation starts now that I'm planning it. So all of the stuff that I kind of actually don't like, the administrative, making the reservations, figuring out where I'm going to stay, what I'm going to do, I don't really like that stuff. But I said, it's part of the vacation. And so I changed how I saw the whole thing, and I had a marvelous vacation. And there were any number of times I could have said, oh, I don't like this and I don't like that. There was a long, long bus ride to Rotorua from the main city I was in, Auckland. Long, hot, dusty bus ride. But I got to see pink sheep.
Oh.
I did. They paint their sheep. It was fun. No pink sheep and various other things, and lots of land I still remember the looks of. And then I caught a bad cold and I couldn't taste diddly squat.
Oh.
I was furious. But here's an interesting point. Before I got the cold, I noticed that the meat in New Zealand was very strong. Unlike our meat in America, which I actually consider quite watery, you know, the taste is barely there in my opinion. The taste in New Zealand was definitely there, and I ate a lot of fish and chips because that taste was okay.
Mm.
So with my terrible cold, I couldn't taste the taste I didn't like, and I had wonderful meals, imagining what they tasted like because I couldn't taste it. So it didn't ruin my trip. So it's around our thoughts. Now another thing about thoughts is thoughts are things.
Mm.
And I read a book 30 years ago. I used to live in the Bay Area, in Oakland on Embarcadero, Jack London Square. That's where it was, at the end of Embarcadero in Oakland, right on the estuary of water. And I would wander around the little shops frequently just to see what was there and amuse myself since I lived a half a block away. And one day I found a little tiny mysterious bookstore. It was a theosophical bookstore, which was a word I'd never heard of. I went into this store and I found a book called The 7 Levels of the Astral Plane. So my question was, first of all, what's an astral plane? And two, how does it have 7 levels? And what does all of that mean? Well, to tell you the truth, it was a little over my head. And I don't remember 6 of the 7 levels. But I do remember one level that they said, and you go here after, according to this book, after we die, we go to this astral plane and we sort of move through these 7 levels, I think as a purification process for the next life or something. As I said, it was a little wooey-fooey and I didn't quite get it all. But what I found interesting was that in one chapter, they said, so on this level, you have to be careful because there's all of these things tumbling around that are the manifestation of ugly thoughts people have on earth.
Ooh.
So all of this ugly thought, bad thought, negative thought that we think, it flies away from us, goes up to this plane, and trips up the spirits that are there. And I thought, okay, that's interesting. But what it made me think about was my thinking.
Mm.
And I also started thinking about how thoughts have energy, and everything I read says thoughts have energy. And I performed a number of Pamela experiences on the impact of thinking turning into energy. Okay, it's not that wooey-fooey as it sounds, but I noticed that I could produce effects with just my thinking. I also noticed that in my thinking, I could pick up energies could pick up the energy of people even though it wasn't obvious. And people could pick up my energy when it wasn't obvious. For example, I played around with looking at people on BART, the underground rapid transit system. I would just kind of sneak and look at somebody from my chair, not turn my head so they could see me staring at them. And any number of times the people would go,
Mhm.
and one time I hid behind a door. I was in a, okay, so I amuse easily. Michael's laughing his behind off at me. But again, I'm still testing this energy. Do our thoughts have energy that people can feel? And the answer is yes. So I hid behind a door. I was doing a workshop at a hotel. And there was a man sitting in the bar. And he was it was a big, it was a bar, dance room, tables. It was huge. And he was way toward the front. So, and I was passing the back of the room, going to my classroom. And so I peeked around the door, and I thought to myself, just look at him, sitting up here at 8 o'clock in the morning at a bar drinking alcohol. What kind of dude is that? As I was thinking that, the man's head whipped to the left, whipped to the right. These were where other doors were. And then he turned completely around and caught me. So that was the end of that experiment. And it's like, okay, people can feel you thinking about them. And what I noticed is they can feel me thinking about them when the thought is a little intense and negative. So they weren't turning their heads around when I said, oh, how beautiful they are. Only when I was criticizing or judging. And I thought, well, that's interesting. So thoughts have energy. So what? Thoughts have energy. What do we care that somebody can feel what we're thinking? Means we might want to think about what we're thinking, because if we're thinking like I was with this guy drinking at 8 o'clock in the morning, if we're just arbitrarily thinking those kinds of things about our friends, our family, the world, if we're putting out that kind of negative energy, it may or may not be going up to the astral plane and tripping up new spirits. It may be, and probably is, impacting the experience we're having right here and now in this world. Now, the psychological viewpoint of that is, if I'm thinking that this is a horrible day, there's too much sun, I can't see, that's going to be my experience. If I'm thinking that, another friend, the same friend that had the bad trip, was telling me that everybody is mean to her now. Everybody is rude. Everybody is dismissive. Since COVID and since a certain political experience we had has come to us. And I said, I'm not having that experience. I am meeting people who are going out of their way to be nice to me, who are amazingly kind, who are helping me everywhere I go. I only had one experience recently on a vacation where a man gave me a nasty look because I was blocking traffic. And I didn't know I was blocking traffic. And I admit that I gave him a nasty look back. My bad. But that was the only negative experience with people that I have been having since COVID. And the other day I was going into Safeway. I was pushing a little cart and a woman was walking, and I was limping because I wrenched my ankle, and so I've been a bit of a invalid, kind of, sort of. So I was moving slow with my cart, and she was coming, and it was clear to me that girlfriend was going to go through the door before I was going to go, and I was like, fine with that. But she stopped, and she said, oh, I'm sorry, you go ahead. And I'm thinking, oh, now I'm going to have to limp ahead. I don't want to limp ahead. I'd rather her go ahead, and then I can just limp, comfortably at my own pace. And I said, it's all right, you go ahead. She says, no, I don't want to to, get in your way. I'm sorry, I just wasn't looking your way. And I was like, oh, isn't that sweet? And I said, it's all right, sweetie, you go right ahead. So she went. But she was making this big deal out of crossing in front of me to get to the Safeway door. Nobody has made a big deal of crossing in front of me to get to the Safeway door until that moment. And people do it all the time. And I thought, how sweet. I got the feeling that what she was saying is, I don't want to diss you. I don't want you to feel unseen or unimportant. I knew it was beyond just me and her getting to the door at the same time. And so I could feel what was beneath what she was saying and doing on the surface. And I mentioned self-referent, and I mentioned that I have said when the world is going wrong, what's my part in it? And frankly, I hate that. I do. I want it to be all their fault. It's them. I was pure and good and chaste and holy, and they were foo-foo heads. However, we have a part in it. I don't care what it is. And even if we can't see the part, we have a choice on how we respond. Stephanie gave a reading on May 15th. Hold on one second. Stephanie's our practitioner. Hi, Stephanie. And it was just amazing, and it fit right in. I'm going to give you the highlights, and if you want the entire reading, you can email me or Michael, and we can send it. He can send it out again. Some of you have already heard it because you were here on May 15th. But it says about choice, and that happiness is a choice. And I'm using this to say how we think is a choice. And it says, choose to be the best you can be, first of all. Just choose to be your best. And it talks about that. And then it says, choose to be around the right people. This is very important. In my notes, I have dismanagement, D-I-S-S, management. And where it came from for me was when I'm in the midst of somebody who is dissing somebody, and they this and they that, and they this and they that. Now, occasionally, this is the truth. They did this and that, and this and that, and presented stuff that could just ruin somebody's day. They did do that. But as the person in the midst of that, I have some choices around how I can receive it and whether I'm adding fuel to the fire or whether I'm trying to bring the temperature down. When I was a corporate trainer, there was some class where they always talked about the brain and what happens when emotion takes over. And they would have this half of the brain that you could see, and it would be all nice and blue and calm until somebody got upset, and then it would catch fire. And so the half of the blue, calm, logical brain was diminished in the heat and the fire of emotion. So when you are absolutely stark raving angry, the brain that thinks and adds 1 and 1 or 2 and is logical and can explore, it's shut down. And we're in the midst of this heat and upset and energy. And so we have talked frequently about how to move out of that. Michael was giving some examples in his reading today. In our spiritual practices, meditation. I could always tell when my fellow ministers weren't meditating because they would be having fits about everything under the sun. I was like, oh, okay, They have not been bringing themselves to center enough, or they wouldn't be pulled off in all these different directions. Not here, of course.
Oh, no.
It was another experience. So you can breathe easy over there, Michael.
No,
Anyway.
I'm guilty.
So there are various tools to get a hold of ourselves, because we are going to feel. We are going to get upset. We are going to say, I can't believe they said that, they did that. But taking a pause. I have an exercise I've given folks I coach and am in workshops with, to not push the trigger for 24 hours. And by trigger, I mean don't send that email the moment you want to send that email. Now, all of you who have been at work, you know what I'm talking about. There have been moments where you have just written this scathing email back, which is a good thing, because you're getting, you're dealing with your anger. But don't push the send button until you sat with it. And I do think it's funny that when I have done that, and 24 hours later I come back to the email and I still send it, I'm thinking, okay, I guess I was really upset. So then I moved it to 3 days.
Oh.
I did, because apparently I could still be pissed for 24 hours. So I moved it to 3 days and things got a little better.
Years.
So, practices that help manage the anger. Another is choose to be around the right people. I was just mentioning that if you're in a dis group, a pity party, it is really hard to resist moving into that energy and piling stuff on. So keep those kinds of folks. There's an expression from my grandmother, you have to feed the devil with a long spoon. In other words, you don't get too close to the negative stuff. Then number 3 on this list of 10, choose to focus on what you have, not on what you haven't. That's a simple one. That's a simple one. That's the gratitude we've been talking about over and over again. It's so easy to say, well, this isn't and that isn't. When there's like this amazing world right in front of us, we are very fortunate and very blessed in this room, because I know who all is in this room. And yes, we have things that are pulling us away from our joy if we allow it. What we're forgetting is to focus on the good that we really have in our lives. Number 4 says, choose a good attitude. And then it says, what often screws us up the most in life is the picture in our head of how it's supposed to be. Uh-oh, there it is. This is the way it's supposed to be, and it's not that way. And my way of thinking of how it's supposed to be is right, and their way is wrong. Well, their way may not be right for you, but it isn't wrong. So, letting go of how it's supposed to be. And again, there's more to this. I'm just doing a light touch on this. And I like this one, choose to smile more often. My boyfriend just took me to Spain. I don't speak a word of Spanish, but I figured we could get through anything with a smile. So I smiled a lot. And people generally will respond back. And even if they don't, I can feel, because remember, I can feel energy, and so can you if we pay attention. But I could feel that people appreciated. I'm thinking of the servers who are I'm trying to explain to them what I want to eat. By the way, there is such a thing as Google Translate. You can put it right in front of something, and it'll translate it as best it can. It'll at least give you some idea. But you can still end up eating pig butt without knowing it. Just saying. But choose to smile more often. It warms up everybody around you. It warms up the room. It warms you up. He says, choose to take care of your body, get sleep, eat right, do exercise. Yeah. Choose honesty. That is number 7. Choose to be honest.
Amen.
And I'm going to add, without reading, well, he does kind of say this, but be honest with yourself. Again, going back to it's all their fault. They're the reason my ankle hurts. You know, somebody left something in my way and I tripped over it. It's their fault. Now, had I been looking down at the ground, I would have seen the hole I stepped into.
Oh.
So, yes, there's this hole that I stepped into and it's somebody's fault for putting it there, but I have some responsibility. I could have been looking at the ground. Every time I've ever tripped or fallen, I was not looking down. And instead it was Seattle's tree roots fault
Oh, yeah.
or what have you. But I had a responsibility in that. So choose to be honest. Choose to help others when you're able. I totally believe in this. I was brought up to give back. And so in some form or another, I always give back. And I can't imagine living a life where I don't give back at some level, in some way, to the rest of the world. The French called it noblesse oblige. And they said that anybody, the nobles, were blessed with all of this bounty and they had a responsibility and an obligation to help others who didn't have as much. And it's sort of like that. Ooh, now we're at number 10. Choose to embrace the next step in your life. And I'm going to put my own spin on that. And again, if you want to see what he said, the writer, please let us know. But embracing the next step, so often we hold on. I stayed in Dance 101 for like 3 years. My dance partners all moved on. And I was like, I like Dance 101. Because by 3 years, I was the best one. I did not want to move on and go back to the bottom of the class because there were dancers who were far better than I was in there, and I was always trying to catch up. But finally, I had to let go of Dance 101 and move into 102 and just work harder. But there are things that we need to let go of. There are times when it's a time for change. And so we have to say, okay, I accept that. It's time to let go and move on. And there are many ways to do that. We can plan it. We can trust that it'll all work out. We could just up and quit. I'm making a face because I was on a board and they talked me into signing up for another year, and then I realized I cannot do this. So I said, I'm sorry, I quit. But I had brought in a person to replace me, and then she quit. And I thought, well, you know, the universe is just going to have to work with them because this is not my work, not my love, not my heart, not my joy. So I quit. So sometimes we have to make those choices and choose to move on. So I'm going to go back to my pre-thanks. In gratitude, you know, we've talked about gratitude. I've talked about gratitude. And I've talked about future thanks, which I'm now calling pre-thanks. But it's the same thing. It's being thankful for what's coming, even though it's not here yet. And I read something that said, when you wake up in the morning, just bless the good in your day that's coming. Just say, thank you, thank you, thank you for all the good that's coming in my day. And then know that there is good coming in your day. And I'm going to add, and then look for the good. Like, ooh, over there, that's good. Ooh, that's good. Yay, this is good. Like I had almost no traffic getting here this morning. That was very good because I was coming from a long ways. And I was like, oh, this is good. I'll get here early and I'll sit in my car and meditate. So, pre-thanks. Be thankful for the good that's coming, knowing that it's coming. In the trip I just took with my boyfriend to Spain, I said, it's going to be good no matter what. It's going to be wonderful no matter what. The fact that I don't speak Spanish, I've never been to that part of Spain, barely know anybody, didn't know anybody except one person. I don't care. We'll get through it. It'll be good. We'll have a lovely time. And in my opinion, friends and family, we had a wonderful time. Spain was beautiful, the part we were in. We were in Catalonia, thank you very much. Main city, Barcelona. It was lovely. It was just lovely. So pre-thinks. This one can be tough if the day that you're thinking of, you can think of reasons why it's not going to be good. And that's where the metaphysical comes in, where you need to have a little faith that regardless, it's going to be good. And what I have found when I do that is that something goes on automatic, and no matter what happens, I can still see the good in it. I don't have to think, okay, this is good, this is good. It just shows up as its own good self. It's wonderful. So knowing it's good, having the faith that it is good, and then also, and in a number of things I've read, it's important to not make it all about me or all about you. We have a much better experience in life when we have the highest and best good for all concerned, however that looks. And so when I'm saying or doing or moving, what's the highest and best good for the people in the room? What's the highest and best good for me and the server? What is the highest and best good for us all, not just Pamela? As darling as Pamela may be. What's the highest and best good for us all? So, in closing, thoughts are things. They come before the feelings. They feed the feelings. If you don't like the feelings, look at what you're thinking. Re-examine that. Change it. Thoughts have power. Thoughts have impact. And we can impact for the positive by changing how we think. And finally, think in terms beyond our individual selves. What's the highest and best good for all concerned? And so it is. Thank you for being here. Oh, and thank you, Stephanie, for that lovely reading.
Is this yours, Pamela? Thank you. Who knew anger could be such a good topic? A pleasant topic, I mean. Thank you, Reverend Pamela. I just want to share one thing that I realized you said about the email to save it a day, then up to 3 days. Well, I had, before email, I had an issue with my uncle, and I wrote this, I was very angry, scathing letter to him, and I didn't send it right away. I waited, and I think I drafted it, I think like maybe 3 or 4 different times, to finally said, to show that I was angry, but not to be that, you know, that I want to kill you anger, you know. So yeah, patience, sometimes patience plays a long term in that. So I want to thank you for being here and making that nice 2-hour drive. You probably saw things you never saw before. And I want to thank everyone for being here today, whether you're here in the room or out in the ethers, or if you're watching this later. We will be here next week, and seeing that that is the 5th Sunday of the month. We have a tradition where our practitioner, Stephanie Scranton, will be speaking. And it is always a joy to have her speaking, because she has a lot of energy. And that's one thing I appreciate about her. I appreciate energy that people have. And I love it when you come across somebody that has this energy and I guess I want to say zest for life. And so join us next week, same time, same station, and we'll be here. And so in closing, I just want to say that we have a choice. We have a choice to allow people to push our buttons. Or we have a choice to say, I'm not going there. We have a choice in this life at everything we do. And that is one of my big things is choice, is knowing that, but sometimes I don't recognize it. I don't realize it. I'm human. And so each of us, we can step back and say, which path do I want to go down? And so with that, I know that there is only one life, and that life is God's life. That life is my life, that life is your life, that life is our life. Because we're all on this planet together. We're in this together. And so with that life that we are, that life of God, that love of God, that presence that we are in each other's life is God, is the divine spirit within. So as we move out into our day, into our week, I know that we take this with us. Take this idea of choice, of choosing who to be with, choosing the perfect company, choosing our thoughts, and allowing them to manifest however they may manifest. And so I give thanks for this day. I give thanks for this group. I give thanks for each and every person that has ever been part of Northern Lights Spiritual Center, and those that will come in the future. So I give thanks, and I release this into the automatic action of the law, which makes it so.